it's interesting. They were out of Rochester, and that was Xerox was centered in Rochester, which then developed the Xerox Center in Palo Alto. And their focus was this total quality management that was coming out of Japan at the time, that you would engineer systems. It was systems engineering of people and society, this total quality management mindset towards children. And I just want to emphasize this top image is talking about the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which was advanced under Obama, and that is part of the planned regional economies that differ depending on your geographic location, that there will be an emphasis on certain types of work. And it was crazy because when I read that, in Philadelphia, our Southeastern Pennsylvania Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act plan, only of the 15 high growth jobs, one was $50 an hour, like a manager, and one was 30, which was an accountant, and the rest were under $15 an hour. Now, you can't live as a family, have a stable life on $15 an hour in Philadelphia. It's impossible. And so we actually had a city poverty committee where I'm going. It was about housing. And I said, you can't even have a housing discussion if you're not actually ready to talk about the gig economy and talk about wages. Because if you're going to have a planned workforce and the workforce is planning that most people are making $15 or less an hour as adult families, that is unmanageable. That is not going to work. And so people need to understand that, as well as a lot of the planned economic systems tied in with Pay for Success are running through the Federal Reserve, the different Federal Reserve branches. And Philadelphia has a Federal Reserve branch. And so they were doing workforce solutions the year before, all of the COVID lockdown happened. And they were working hand in hand with Comcast. So again, the telecom companies, who wants to live in a global digital prison run by your cable company or your phone company? But they are all working together to get this set up. And why would the Federal Reserve be working with Comcast on reskilling? Well, now that is pretty clear. So again, I just want to reinforce, I wrote in my blog, and I would encourage people to look it up. I wrote an open letter to Dr. Cardona because about all of this, because he is going to be part of this. The Pay for Success is going to be wrapped into the community school model, which we can talk about further around wraparound services for families. And because he had a family history of growing up in subsidized housing, and his grandfather was Puerto Rican, and he has a very much that is part of his culture. He stayed in his community, had a big commitment to that community. He will be the face, right, to advance this program. And if it is done in such a way that those families are targeted as Pay for Success investment opportunities, is that just? Is that actually justice for those families? So, here's him in the virtual reality headset. And to me, that is a gut-wrenching picture, is if the future of education is that, because that to me is very isolating in setting up this future. The image at the top, this young boy in the yellow vest, this is from a slide share from JCA Solutions, which is a defense contractor in Orlando. And a lot of the gamification of education, including the augmented reality tablet there, is being advanced through defense simulation contracting. And so it's this melding of the entertainment industry, the gaming industry, and the military and defense industries for this future of gig work. So you can imagine we're almost moving with AI and with coding, and real-time language translation. That plus the blockchain being digital identity and AI meeting out the work is you don't even have to, it doesn't matter what language if they just give you a tablet and tell you to push this button, right? But the system as it is being set up is not to train this young man to build his own machine, to build a better machine, to do, to build another system. It is simply to be a cog in this larger program, work in an Amazon warehouse, to not fulfill that idea. So again, I want to hit on the virtual reality education, because there are many people in the education space who have been working really hard about screen time, reducing screen time. And what people need to understand is it's going to expand into wearable technology, and the screen is going to be on your face. And so the internet of bodies, the sensor networks are getting more and more sophisticated, and the people who are working in the space of managing and limiting screen time for children need to expand their view into that space. And again, this is just touching on the Sustainable Development Goal 4. The data analytics, the reason this child has to be taught in a VR headset is to get the data to run these financial deals. And that's all tied to PISA. I mean, I remember back in the day, they were pitching, oh, well, the PISA is the better test because it's OECD. And no, it's not. Children aren't data, and they aren't meant to run these impact markets. They're just not. So get them out of the headsets, in my opinion. I don't know. Did you have anything on this? But this is shocking. Most people don't know. And the crazy thing is, a part of this slide share, and I have a blog post on this. It's called Boiling Frogs, and it's about Procter & Gamble and the Internet of Things. But there's a diagram in there that talks about the biometrics that can be pulled out of that VR headset, and then also with haptic controllers. And so it's heart rate, it's eye movement, it's emotion sensing, and that depending on how you act in this haptic environment, it will upload. This was talking about a competency-based model. It was competency-based education, and the competency was how to pet a dog properly. And so they broke down all of the rubric of what it would take to pet a virtual dog properly into all of these steps. And then the child in the haptics had to demonstrate all of the steps. And once they did that successfully, then a token, sort of a credit, went into their online locker that they accomplished that task. And so this is the future of education. And they're saying, like, hey, simulation-based education is so much cheaper than real education with real people. And a lot of this is being pushed by UNICEF through the United Nations in Africa and India. They have an innovation fund that is primarily, their primary funder is Disney, and it's based out of Singularity University in the Bay Area. And they're saying things like, oh, those kids in Nigeria, there will never be money to open schools and teach them with teachers. There's not going to be money for that. So we will give them a VR headset. And actually, we're going to have VR that you can code with gestures. So you don't even have to, it's post-literacy is what they're talking about. And these are, again, you think UNICEF, you think, oh, the company, the entity that you take around your change when you go Halloween trick-or-treating, right? No, this is a monstrous program that they're talking about. And I wish I were making it up, but I'm not. So, I mean, there's just some visuals. Like, this is the world that we're building, that is being built for the 3-year-olds. Okay, so we're talking geofencing. Increasingly, this Internet of Bodies with wearable technology is being used to manage populations and how they're able to interact with one another, both in interior spaces and external spaces. Boston Dynamics was owned by SoftBank. I think it's been resold, but again, it's out of Boston, so this is global capital. This isn't, no one country owns this problem. So they're building, we've seen the push for the robotic dogs, monitoring, distance monitoring in parks. Now they're talking about sticking tablets on the dogs and having them be like medical check-ins and doing virtual labor by sticking iPad tablets on the heads of these Boston Dynamics dogs. The upper image there is that cities in China are using blockchain to track people on parole. So again, as we start to address issues of prison reform, they are changing the model of state control over populations, especially impoverished populations, not by decriminalizing poverty, but about outsourcing it. And so once we have the satellite systems and the internet, the spatial web systems, and you're interfaced with digital ID, you can be tracked in the spatial web for your good behavior. And that is already being piloted in China. It's not strictly China. That's coming through the IEEE, which is the International Electrical Engineering and Engineers Association. It's out of New York, like the IEEE, and they set this up in China so that they could work through digital government. But people are being tracked for their Sesame credits. And again, it's not just a Chinese situation. They're a convenient test bed for these technologies.